Hello everyone. Welcome to our college essay panel. We're so excited to have a chance to hear from some great experts. You should be able to, for people tuning in, we'll give you some time to kind of roll in, and then we're just going to kind of get started. This is very exciting. And also, this is our first time at the rodeo using this platform. So everyone's doing great, feeling very professional. Okay, I see we've got 6 people joining us. Welcome, welcome. Please feel free to drop your comments in the chat. And without further ado, I'm going to introduce our first speaker, Tom. And we'll have a chance to hear from everyone today, and then we'll do questions at the end, but feel free to drop questions in as we're going. Thanks.
Hey, thank you. Thanks for having me, everyone. My name is Tom Roberts. I'm an admissions counselor at the New School in New York City. I'm just going to share my screen here. And all right. Just making sure I can actually do that. Right. It might not be working super well for me, so we will just kind of do this spoken word style. So again, I'm Tom Roberts. I work at the New School. So I just wanted to give some insight into what colleges are looking for in the essay and supplements within the context of performing in visual arts colleges. We have a lot of students coming to us looking to do things like art and design, playing an instrument, being an actor or a playwright, something along those lines. And so we get a lot of questions about, from students who are working so hard on preparing auditions, portfolios, things like that, like what is the importance of the college essay? And so our admissions committees at programs like ours and other institutions that are similar do value the creative components of the application, but they also want to see your writing ability as well. That essay helps them to get to know you, understand what is important to you, learn more about your passions, kind of the context for why you might be interested in pursuing a creative field like performing arts or art and design. And it kind of helps us also to see what makes you unique. And really that kind of just ties into also how important the college essay is. So for us specifically, we do have a holistic application review process. So we kind of evaluate all of the admissions credentials all together. So it's not like we're making an admissions decision just based off of someone's portfolio alone or just based off of that audition. We are looking at all of the other application credentials, including the essay. And often that essay does give us a lot of great context for why you're doing what you're doing, why you want to continue doing what you're doing, why you're maybe pursuing this creative field through a very serious 4-year degree. So yeah. And some things that we like students to think about, some of my colleagues and I are kind of interested in essay writing. I myself really enjoyed writing when I was in college pursuing my BFA, and I find myself helping friends do things like writing grant applications, residency applications. So I often look at essays from creative professionals who are writing kind of for part of their job as creative professionals. And so some things that we like students to think about is how the essay is sort of a way to show us who you are. And so when you're thinking about that in the context of our admissions committee, we're looking at your writing style, how you adhere to essay limitations, how you approach showing us who you are creatively, creating like a concrete theme or topic of your essay. So some colleagues and I kind of created a short workshop. So I just have a few notes from kind of a snapshot of that. Normally we'd spend like an hour going over these kinds of things, but I know my time is a little short, but just some things to think about when coming up with ways to brainstorm your topic. We definitely recommend thinking about maybe things like who are people who have made a significant impact on your life and maybe your creative pursuit. thinking about what you're passionate about, and why are you passionate about that thing. You're applying to college or for doing something like performing arts or visual arts, and so our admissions committee is going to know that you're passionate about it, but what makes you passionate about it? Perhaps you could also tie in things like important events or moments in your life. I was working with someone who applied to our fashion design program, and this specific collection from designer Raf Simons totally changed their perspective of how fashion designers can make fashion. And that was a really interesting thing that they introduced in their essay, because it kind of showed us the shift that they had in their perspective on making fashion, why they wanted to pursue that seriously. Some things to obvious tips and tricks, helping, getting someone to help you proofread and edit your essay, and then also helping others proofread and edit their essays can be a really great tool to kind of improve your own writing. If you've ever taught someone, maybe you are a creative person yourself and you've like mentored a music student in the instrument that you're an expert in, that can kind of help you become better at that instrument. It really works the same way with exercising your writing muscles. And then just some things to avoid, specifically for us, writing at all is often something that we see students do, kind of talking about how like ever since they were a kid and kind of giving us when they started drawing when they were 3 years old to where they are now in high school creating a portfolio. We don't necessarily need that early story. Maybe there's something funny that you share a sentence about and then you kind of pivot to where you're at now. But that's something we see students do that we'd like to see them maybe avoid or give us a little bit more insight into where they are now. And then lastly, just, thinking about once you've written your college essay, some students might think, is this the last time I have to write like this? And the last thing I want to just share is that you will still be writing a lot. You will have to be writing for your degree program, creating critical analysis of art, music, and performance history, often in design and music history classes. You'll be writing cover letters for internships and jobs, application essays for residency programs, post-grad programs, grants and scholarship opportunities. Maybe you're drafting your own artist statements or press releases for music you're putting out there. So you'll definitely still be writing. So try to look at this process as kind of like training for what you will be continuing to do after you get into your degree program and pursue your degree. Like I said, I help my friends out with that kind of thing postgraduate. But yeah, looking forward to hearing from you with your questions and getting some other insights from my colleagues. Thanks again.
Wonderful. Hello, everyone. My name is Noah Gruzensky. I'm one of the assistant directors of admission at Kenyon College in Gambier, Ohio. This is usually such a delightful time of year for all of us in the admissions industry, not just to visit with our prospective students and prospective families, but also seeing fellow admissions professionals on the road. With that being said, I'm very glad that we can all be here, whatever here means, together via the miracle of modern technology. And I definitely look forward to conversing together with respect to the personal essay aspect of the application. To sort of preface our conversation together, I definitely like to note that all of us who work in admissions find a lot of joy through the opportunity that we have to be in touch with young people during a time in their lives when, whether they know it or not, they are engaging in a lot of high intensity soul searching, right? Thinking about who they are, who they aspire to be, as well as which environments are going to be most conducive to becoming the sort of person that they aspire to be, and finding the intellectual and personal growth that they are looking for. And with all that in mind, I think that what I like most about the personal essay portion of the application is that it really exemplifies the humanness and the individuality of the college search, which at its best is guided by a desire to be true to who you are and seek out a place where for all the ways in which you will be challenged, for all the ways in which you will grow, for all the ways in which you will surprise yourself, you will ultimately feel at home through that process. I love all of the brainstorming tips, topic brainstorming tips that Tom had to share. And I think one of the things that is at once both very challenging, but also very liberating, when it comes to the personal essay is the fact that there are an innumerable number of subjects that could be the topic of an essay that complements the rest of an application very well, and perhaps even boosts the overall strength of the application. It could be an object, it could be a person, it could be a fictional character, an experience, a quote, a relationship, a favorite book, a favorite movie, a favorite TV show. It could be something quirky, it could be something very everyday. Anything in any one of those categories has the potential to be the topic of an essay that complements the rest of a given application very, very well. It's very much not the case that essays about a meaningful relationship are automatically given this grade, and essays about a favorite song are given this grade. That's because ultimately what we on the admissions committee are looking for in an essay, as Tom alluded to, is an illustration of the student's identity through the topic that they choose. So if you're brainstorming topics, I recommend all students ask themselves, not necessarily, is this a cool topic? Is this an interesting topic? But rather, is this a topic through which I would be able to communicate an important part of who I am as an individual in writing? So if, let's say, through playing video games, you've learned lessons that really inform how you think about life and how you process the world around you, that might be a very good topic. If classical music is something about which you are passionate, if it's a passion that you share with a parent and it's been a cornerstone of the relationship with that parent, classical music might be a very good topic of your essay. One of the most significant keys, I think, to once you have your topic, actually writing an essay that complements the rest of your application particularly well is making sure that it is clear that your topic is a vehicle for communicating a feature of your identity, instead of, on the other hand, being the sole focus of your essay, such that the admissions committee doesn't actually end up learning a whole lot about who you are. It sounds like a very subtle distinction, but as you continue to reread and to rewrite, that is something that I would be particularly sensitive to. For instance, if the topic of your essay is yoga, ask yourself, is this an essay about yoga, or is this an essay in which I am using yoga as a means to communicate a central part of my identity? Because again, that's ultimately what we are looking for while we are reading essays. Our hope is not to learn more about whichever topic you ended up choosing, but it is to learn more about who you are through the written word and through the topic that you choose. Again, look forward to being in conversation with you all this afternoon through the modern miracle of technology. And with that, I will pass the mic off to Katie.
All right. Hello, everybody. Speaking of modern miracle technology, I was having some trouble with my microphone, so I hope you can all hear and see me okay. Thank you so much for having me and Grinnell College today. I'm an assistant director of admission at Grinnell, also a graduate of Grinnell. I worked as a writing mentor all through college, and the essay is by far my favorite part of the application. Just a little bit about Grinnell. So we're a selective small liberal arts college that is very writing intensive. So I always tell students, whether you major in English or biological chemistry, you will graduate a stronger writer. And to echo what my colleagues have already said, that is such a life skill. It's one of those transferable skills that you'll need wherever you go. I find it's something that students often either really love or they have a lot of apprehension about. But I would, just encourage you to dive in, follow those great tips that my colleagues shared. A few other things that I really look for in S or often give students are think about what activities get you in flow. I find that a lot of students feel a little stuck at the beginning of that brainstorming process. So I'm a psych major, so to nerd out about this a little bit. But if you're not familiar with the concept of flow, it's those experiences when you lose track of time and you get fully immersed in what you're doing and you kind of lose your ego, but then you come out with a stronger sense of connection. Maybe for you, that's a chemistry experiment or playing soccer or cello, or even a really road trip. I love a good transportation essay. But that can often be a good place to start if you feel like you haven't defined your quote unquote passion. Just being mindful and paying attention to those moments where you feel like you're fully immersed and engaged in what you are doing. Another thing I often look for in essays is of the student's system, maybe a more thoughtful or provocative way to put this is, who are you when no one is around to offer praise or criticism, and what matters to you? So I like to see that through. And as I said, we really look at the essay as a vehicle. So you want to pick the topic that allows you to express this, values and character system. It's something that oftentimes really helps to do a bunch of pre-writing before, trying to just self-reflect really before you construct an essay and shoot that out into the world of a college admissions committee. You really want to be clear on what's important to you and what will round out your application as well. Some tips that I think are maybe a little more technical would be, first of all, just start writing. Embrace crappy first drafts. A writer I love says that with a little more profanity, but I think oftentimes you write your way into your topic. And even if it comes out kind of gibberish at the beginning, just keep writing and then read it until you hit on something that feels like truth. I think teenagers have really good BS detectors, if you'll pardon my language. If you read your essay when it's done or when it's partially done and you feel like that sense of, okay, I think I'm saying what they want to hear, that's not your topic. You want to write something that you not only feel on a technical or critical level, but something that you feel like the reader would know something about you as a person that they couldn't tell from your resume or just from looking at you when they finish. Last I will leave you with is, I often find that it's really, you can pick up a lot of insights by reading your completed essay from the bottom up. Oftentimes students will, like I just said, write their way down to their point. So you totally don't have to follow like that traditional 5-paragraph essay model. But if you have the whole theme of your essay and you've gotten to it in paragraph number 5 or 4 or 6, oftentimes reading it backwards can help you make sense of what the organization and the flow of your writing looks like to a reader. So that's all I have. Thank you again for hosting this Amherst Pelham, and I look forward to your questions.
All right. Well, thank you, Tom, Noah, and Katie, for some really wonderful points of wisdom. I'm going to try and share new and different. I always hate meetings where we just say the same thing over and over, so I'm going to try and share new and different. I think the first thing I would share is always have a so what. I think this was already touched on a little bit, but as you're sharing any information, why are you sharing it with me? Why is this important? You get to choose why it's important, but being explicit, I think that's certainly okay, of what this activity is and why it's important to you and what it speaks about you. Tell me the so what. Being authentic and being genuine. If you're funny, be funny. If maybe you're not the person who's got the best jokes, don't force it. Maybe that might not come off the most authentic. For supplemental essays, quite often supplemental essays are asking you, why would you like to study at this college, or what about this college or university excites you? Do your research, Google, use the admissions websites. There's a ton of online published information. If you write about Boston University's nursing program and how excited you are to study nursing at BU, I will know you did not do your research. We do not have a nursing program. So if you name drop a program that a college or university doesn't have, that's not going to be a great look. So you want to make sure you do your research. Our admissions websites have so much information, whether about professors or student life, academics, dorms, traditions. You can use this to your advantage. It will make your application stand out when you do your research. Proofread, proofread, proofread. I can't tell you how many times that all my colleagues and I have read something where you're like, they're very excited about going to collage, not college, but collage, usually something that's kind of more artistic related. I'm not kidding you. It's a simple mistake, but you need to proofread because it's the incorrect word spelled correctly. Word's not going to pick that up for you, or your spell check's not going to correct that. So you want to make sure you can address that by reading it out loud, having a friend read it, having somebody who cares about you read it, somebody who's not your best friend read it. You're going to get some really good, honest feedback there. I already see there's a ton of great questions coming through the comments. So rather than me just go on and on, I'll actually just kind of pass it off so we can get into Q&A, because I think anything beyond that, I'll just get repetitious.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody. I'm just coming on real quick to say all of our panelists are magically transcending time and space right now in one digital ether, and I'm gonna hop out, but let folks kind of work through the questions in the chat. There's some really great things in there already, but as more questions come up, we'll just keep going. Does that sound good for everybody? Cool. All right. Thanks.
All right, do we want to start towards the top of the chat, maybe work our way down? Oh my God, there's questions already. That's great.
Sounds like a plan. Sounds like a plan. Let's see. So the question with respect to holistic admission, I can take the lead on that, and y'all can jump in to fill in all the things that I miss. I'm sure I will miss a lot. Yeah, with respect to how much weight the essay has. I mean, I think that for most institutions, the high school transcript is going to be the piece that's going to carry the single most weight, because that is the single best indicator of how prepared that student is to handle the academic rigor of the institution to which they are applying. And I think by and large, most applications, the final rating or grade that admissions committees arrive at is not going to be radically far off from the transcript. The transcript usually ends up guiding the final rating, but at the same time, the final rating very rarely is just that same rating of the transcript. I mean, the other pieces of the application very much affect the final rating. But I would definitely think of it as the transcript is the piece that most often will guide the rating to begin with, and then the other pieces, the essay, the letters of support, the co-curricular activities, those are going to move the rating up or down after that. So yeah, I would definitely say that it's definitely hard to put a number on it in terms of how much weight the essay and the other pieces have. I would say that the final rating of the application is definitely going to reflect the strength of the transcript to a certain degree. But at the same time, the final rating will not be radically different from the transcript, which I hope for most students is a liberating notion when it comes to the essay, knowing that if your transcript is already very, very strong, an essay is not going to radically bring down your rating for as far as the application goes. So again, sort of building off of what my fellow admissions colleagues have shared already, using the essay as an opportunity to really engage in self-exploration and introduce yourself into the admissions committee in a way to present yourself in a way that can only be communicated through the written word, in a way that's showing a side of yourself that isn't necessarily reflected through other pieces of your application. That is a fantastic approach, and often yields essays that end up complementing the rest of the application very well.
I was just gonna kind of tie this into a latter question. I know someone also asked about suggestions for ESL students, and I do want to touch on that too, but someone also asked about how we weigh supplemental essays against the Common App essay, and just specifically where I work, we don't require the common application essay. So our main essay is like an essay that's institution specific, why you're interested in coming to our institution. So for us, we're definitely looking more at that supplemental essay that's specific to us. If you've chosen to include the common app essay, that's awesome. We love to see like another example of you writing, but that's not specifically going to really change that overall admissions rating that Noah was talking about. So that's just for us, but yeah.
And sticking on that point of writing tips for an ESL student, I think these are writing tips that I would share really with any student. It's make sure you give yourself the appropriate time. Make sure you know that your first version isn't your best version. And when you need help, this is the best time to ask for help. The students, I think, in university and college usually do the best are the ones who seek out the most help. So use your resources, whether that's your English teachers or your college counselors, folks who are here to support you. They're excited. So make the time, make sure you provide appropriate time. Asking the day before your application is due, I would say that's an inappropriate amount of time. You want to make sure that they can give their full attention. So asking the night before something is due, that's probably not appropriate. But maybe, like 3 weeks out, 4 weeks out, so they can schedule like enough time to really review and consider and chat with you. I think that will help. So use your resources and use your resources appropriately.
Let's see. I think I caught a couple questions in the chat with respect to word count. So just on that subject, yes, that is correct. That the Common App essay, the maximum word count is 650. There is no minimum word count for the Common App essay. And I mean, generally speaking, within the universe of writing, right, more words doesn't mean better, right? An 800-page book is not necessarily better than a 200-page book, obviously. It goes without saying. Within the context of the Common App essay, though, I think that one thing that admissions committees are looking for in the essay is a sense that the applicant has really made the most of the opportunity to express themselves on paper and communicate their identity through the written word. And I think just a very easy way to show the admissions committee that you've done that is by getting very close to the 650 max word count. Admissions counselors, we don't have time to, we're not going to like count every single word and see, if it's 645 words or 646 words. But I will just say, a very easy way to show the admissions committee that you have invested a lot of time in your essay and really made the most of that opportunity is by getting close to that 650 word count. And to echo the remarks of my colleagues already, I think once you get started with brainstorming and drafting, you'll find that 650 words is oftentimes not enough, and the problem is usually more cutting down your essay instead of adding on to it. So definitely don't be intimidated by that 650 number. And I think again, just a very easy way to show the admissions committee that you invested a lot of time in the essay is to get fairly close to that 650 max.
On a similar topic, there's a question about what's the approximate layout for an essay, whether it's 5-paragraph or 3-paragraph. At least from my perspective, there's no specified layout. I think if things aren't formatted whatsoever, if it's just a big square block of text, that doesn't look great, just aesthetically. Even if the content is wonderful and it's the most amazing prose I've ever read, it just shows that you didn't like space things out, you didn't indent and use your margins appropriately. So you want to make sure that you do just double check even the formatting. I wouldn't say that you have to use 5 paragraphs. Some students kind of do a narrative, so it's broken up into lots of little bits of text over the course of those 650 some words. It's really what makes most sense for your writing, but you want to make sure you have thought about it just a little bit. 5-paragraph is perfectly fine. If it's 3, I think that's also fine. But that's, again, going to be just another way that you can kind of put the effort in and we can see the effort. Quite literally, how is it presented to us when we're reading it? So it's not just one big block of writing.
Yes, and to Griffin's point, just while I'm thinking of it, it's definitely not the case that the only essays that we receive are 5-paragraph essays, and it's also not the case that the best essays are the standard 5-paragraph format. We definitely get narrative stream of consciousness essays. I think that thinking back to Griffin's remarks earlier about being true to yourself, just like if you're not a comedian, the Common App personal statement essay is usually not the best time to try your hand at stand-up comedy. Same way with sort of stream of consciousness writing. If it is a format that you're very comfortable with, it could very well end up being a strong essay. I think as you spend more time writing, the style that you feel most comfortable with and you feel allows you to engage with your topic and communicate yourself through that topic. Just being sensitive to how you feel during the drafting and during the revising process is very helpful. And chances are, if you feel very, very comfortable while writing with any given format, that's a format that's going to be very effective in terms of getting you close to that final draft that you're looking for. Screenplay format, personal statement. Oh my gosh, yeah, those can be very fun as well. We love, we love when students are just being true to who they are and true and reflecting that through the format. So yeah, if you are a creative person who has is comfortable writing in a variety of different formats, don't be afraid to try those different formats out through the drafting and revision process. One of them might end up being the final draft that you want to submit. So yeah, definitely don't let creative impulses. Definitely don't ignore your creative impulses as you go through the drafting process.
I've noticed over the course of many of my high school visits, virtual high school visits this fall, a lot of students have been asking about how can they share about COVID. It's something that's impacted quite literally everyone. That's why we're not in person doing this presentation, but all over the US. And just so do know, it impacts everyone, including us on the Board of Admissions. So we're aware there's going to be lots of changes, and those are being communicated clearly and accurately by your counselors. But there might be additional information that you feel like is relevant to share. And I think it's important to kind of discern what should you be sharing and what might just be kind of an understood given, I should say. So I think if there's a curriculum change that's impacting your entire school, well, that's probably shared by your counselors in a document called the school profile. So do you need to share that in the additional information section? Well, probably not. I'll understand when I look at your transcript why that exception might be there. If there's a particular circumstance that's unique to you, your family, something that's immediately specific to you that wouldn't impact your larger community, I think that's worth sharing. But that's just my perspective. I don't know if Noah or Tom have other ideas on this very new relevant topic.
Yeah, I would just kind of share that for us, again, if it's specifically and uniquely impacted you and you want to share about that, I've also seen students already starting to respond to COVID in their portfolios, for example, making work about it. And that's been a really special and unique way to kind of see their response to making in quarantine, not having access to practice spaces or studio spaces in the way that they normally would. And so using the essay section to kind of contextualize that could be a really cool thing. But definitely there's no need to, you can trust that our admissions committees will be looking into understanding what's going on at your school and how it specifically impacted your school. So you don't need to tell us what you might already know, which is really just a good strategy in general for the essays. You'll have other pieces of information in the application. If you're just repeating that in your essay, you're really just repeating yourself. So yeah.
There's another question that popped up a lot about appropriate topics of what might be okay to write about and what might not be okay. And trauma has come up quite often of when is it appropriate to share and to what extent. I often kind of would phrase it as, is this something you would share or feel comfortable sharing with the teacher? And how does it present you kind of what do we learn from this in a positive way? We want to always view you in the best light possible. So where's the growth and what's the takeaway? Everyone's going to go through all sorts of experiences in life, and that's okay. You shouldn't feel like you have to share the heaviest story that you've been through, because sometimes that's very personal and you shouldn't have to feel like you need to share that. You need to share the story that you're most excited about sharing. So sometimes, yeah, it can be a hard moment, but it doesn't have to be. So don't feel compelled to share what might be the most challenging moment you've ever been through, because maybe you want to present yourself in a different light. You shouldn't be defined by a kind of traumatic experience. Of course, it will impact you, but that shouldn't be your only story. So it's your choice. I know that's not really the most specific answer, but I just want to relieve any anxiety. If students feel pressured into sharing a certain type of narrative, please know that all sorts of narratives are accepted, because that's who you are. You should be accepted for whatever stories you want to share.
Absolutely. No, yeah, I'm so glad you brought that up, Griffin. Yeah, we will never, read an essay and be like, oh, that wasn't sad enough, so we're not going to give it a high rating. That's just not, how the how the essay process, as an essay review process goes. And as much as the Common App essay is a wonderful opportunity for, introducing yourself to the admissions committee, we also realize that you are more than whatever you put down on your essay. We're not going to reduce you to that single feature, but it is just a wonderful opportunity for you to share about something that is meaningful to you, and not letting the, where it falls on the spectrum of emotions being the sole consideration that you have with respect to the topic that you choose is helpful. Is helpful to keep in mind. Yes, I mean, essays that deal with trauma definitely aren't going to either get guarantee one way or the other in terms of what the overall rating is. Again, going back to what we've been talking about earlier, it's how does it communicate who you are, and how effective is it as a vehicle for giving us in the admissions committee an idea of who you are beyond the other pieces of the application. But yes, definitely don't feel like you have to produce an essay that that generates or elicits a certain emotion from the readers that are going to be taking a look at it.
Katie is still with us via our chat. So she was able to chime in, and I'm just going to read back approximately what she shared. A piece of advice that she often shares is to focus on how students have grown through moments of challenge and trauma, and how they have coped with it. So how do they kind of prepare themselves for challenging situations in the future? College, you're transitioning from high school, a home environment you may have been around for many, many years, to a new home, a new community. So how are you going to cope, and what resources are you going to use to make sure you kind of lock in your mental well-being? So that was from Katie.
Yeah, thinking of, I know we've mentioned supplemental essays before early on in our conversation. I mean, full disclosure, Kenyon is not an institution that requires supplemental essays, but I mean, just anecdotally from working in admissions and being in conversation with other colleagues, I think generally the advice that I tend to hear most often is to work if you're applying to a Common App, if you're applying to Common App institutions, to work on your Common App essay first, and then work on supplemental essays afterwards. I think that can, from a time perspective, that can be helpful. And I think also just from a writing creative perspective, it can be really nice to have your Common App essay done and sort of use the brainstorming and creative energy that you exercise during that process to sort of inform your process of going through the supplemental essays as well. And I think, in terms of timeline wise, perhaps, working on your Common App essay at the beginning of the summer, if possible, and then perhaps doing the supplemental essays in the fall or later in the summer. I think, at this point in high school, the students will generally know how long it takes them to write a certain amount. So for me, I'd probably have to finish my Common App essay like spring of my junior year and start my supplements at the beginning of the summer, because I just take a long time. So just being very, very cognizant of your own personal and work and co-curricular responsibilities at different points of the year is definitely a good thing to keep in mind as you go into the spring of your junior year in anticipation of writing your essays. If you have a lot of fall sports commitments, for instance, maybe trying to work on the supplements over the summer as well would be helpful. But generally, I think the advice that I tend to hear is to work on your Common App essay first, have that finished, and use that as sort a base to sort of guide your work through the supplemental essays afterwards.
I was also thinking about this when Griffin brought up kind of essays that mention things that might be specific to a different school than the one that the essay is landing at. And so definitely I love like a beautiful spreadsheet moment. And if you want to just like track like each individual college's specific requirements with regards to the essays or other things about their application process, that can be a really great kind of organizational tool to just kind of keep track of which schools are looking for which things and making sure that you're submitting the correct things to the correct schools so that they get the things that are written for them and made for them, and they know that you're putting a lot of thought into your application for that school.
On a similar note, this is again is from Katie. When you are writing your supplemental essays, don't put it so far off that the quality of the writing is significantly different, where you have a very polished essay with your Common App and your supplemental essays for her institution. She mentions QuestBridge applications where the essays, there's a discrepancy between the two. And then again, when you're writing your supplemental essay where the prompt might ask you, why would you like to attend this institution? Don't just write a laundry list of things that the institution has, but rather how you'll engage with them. That is so much more relevant, and it shows that students are going beyond just, all right, this college has this type of first-year student program or this type of dorm, but how you actually engage with those resources. And then a piece of advice that I would share when you're responding to supplemental essays, kind of think about what the question is and what you're really trying to share. So why you want to study here? Yep, that's a pretty straightforward one. But maybe it's an honors college that has a specific mission or learning style. Well, how are you going to display that you have that? Maybe it's interdisciplinary learning. How are you going to put that on display? Or if it's maybe a scholarship supplemental essay, they might ask about like critical thinking. Well, how are you going to put your critical thinking on display? You have to kind of link it all together so someone like myself can understand how you actually view a problem, how you challenge it, how do you present ideas and kind of put it all together in a package that I can follow along with. So different supplemental essays will have different kind of goals at the end of it, and it's up to you to kind of define what's the goal of this essay and what should I be sharing. There's not necessarily a right or a wrong answer, but some might be a little more helpful than others. It looks like we're being prompted to share any final tips or takeaways. So I think my final tip would just be really try to find that voice, that like internal dialogue, this voice. I think somebody had mentioned it before, when you're by yourself without kind of criticism or praise from anyone, who are you in your own eyes and how can you best share that with us? All sorts of different ways to do that. And I think that's the most exciting part about the college essays is it's your own words. All the other parts of the application, you really don't get to say exactly your own words. So really have fun with this opportunity to take that voice from here and share it into that essay.
Yes, and I'll bring in Katie's advice first before sharing my own. So from Katie, from a colleague of Katie's, don't write an essay about discovering that other people are also human. This applies to especially the essays from privileged students about service trips. So yeah, very good thing to be cognizant of while you're going through the brainstorming process and the drafting process as well. In terms of final tips for me, I mean, I think Perhaps this isn't necessarily college essay advice, but it's advice related to the college essay. In terms of the introspection that goes on while you're drafting your Common App essay, don't feel like this has to be the only time in your life when you think about, when you are happiest, and think about when you are, truly yourself and what makes you you. I think that the introspection involved in the Common App essay is just a very good part of living a good human life at any stage, even when you're not applying for college. And I think that if you can think about the brainstorming and the drafting and the revising process as something that you're not just doing to get into college, but you're doing as an exercise for personal and emotional well-being, I think that can make it a particularly rewarding process, and can even lead to a great essay as well. So I think framing the Common App essay in that light as an opportunity to engage in introspection that is good for at any point, that is important for being well at any point in your life, really helps to facilitate the brainstorming, the drafting, revising process in such a way that you end up with a final draft that not only are you proud of from a stylistic standpoint, but really brings out who you are as an individual.
I just want to say so many great things have been shared today. So I hope I'm not repeating anything that might have disappeared from my brain in the last few minutes. But I just really think that just remembering that this is kind of your moment of where you have the most agency in your application. I know for us, there's also some other supplemental things where you're doing things a little bit more creatively, but don't forget about this moment too, if you are someone who's adding those other things, and just take that step back from your other application credentials and think about what's missing, because that can be a really great thing to sort of lean into, and helping admissions committees understand more about who you are. But yeah, thanks again for all of the really amazing questions, everyone.
Yeah, just wanted to hop in and say thank you so much to Griffin and Tom and Noah and Katie for your time and wisdom today. This was really helpful. And also thanks for getting creative and figuring out how to make it work so everyone could participate, even with the tech issues. I think you all really killed it on the fly. So thank you all so much for spending some time with us this afternoon, and I hope everyone has a great rest of their day. Thank you. Okay.